Hey, hello everyone, good morning. Let us talk about how API works in live applications. Generally, we should understand what is API. API stands for Application Programming Interface, which is really important in order to create a dynamic applications for fetching the data from a database and updating data into the front end. In this scenario, APIs plays a very critical role, which is much needed nowadays in order to build a dynamic applications. Without an APIs, there is no point of creating a dynamic applications. That's where we would like to give in detail information about what is API, what type of APIs are available, and what kind of methods are available, what kind of applications are built, what are the benefits of using API. This is the agenda points that I would like to discuss with all of you guys in this particular video. So kindly stay tuned and don't skip this video because this plays a very critical role in IT for each and every developer. So the information what we are going to give, which is going to be an absolute accurate information so that it benefits every developer, no matter whether you are JavaScript, Java developer, Python developer, or PHP developer or .NET developer. This particular information is much needed. So as we already discussed, API unveiling the backbone of modern app communication. So in case when we are building multiple applications, there are many places we may need some data to be shared between applications. Application 1, application 2, application 3 and application N. So when we are building such kind of applications, we definitely need an APIs. What happens if API concept is not there? In such cases, we may have to define a data for an application 1 separately, and if you need the same data in application 2, again we should rewrite the same logic and same code in application 2. Again, if you need the same data in application 3, application 4 and application N, same logics that you guys have to rebuild again and again. That is one of the biggest headache for developers and development companies too. To avoid this kind of duplicate code, that is where this application programming interfaces come into the picture. Let me jump into the detailed discussion about what is this APIs in detail. So here, if you all can see that what is an API, as I already discussed, API stands for Application Programming Interface, is a set of rules. This is something is very, very important. It is a set of rules. Guys, when we are sending a request between a client, let me just explain. If you consider this is a client mission, users would be keep sitting in front of a client mission, either female or male, whatever it is, those who would like to access an application. So all the users are keep accessing that application by making use of their device. Either it might be laptop or it might be desktop or it might be mobile. Now you see that generally data for every application, data is always there in the database. Okay, so for large scale applications, database is mandatory, but in the database, either data is in the form of tables, rows and columns, or if the data in the form of schema, whatever the database it is, finally the data which is there in the database has to display over here. This, if you consider this one application 1, similarly there are application 2 and you guys can also see application 3 and application N. Guys, the same data if it is required for application 2, if the same data if it is required for application 3 and so on, that is where API comes into the picture. In case if you are building only one application, I think API is not much needed, but there is a lot of advantages are there behind using APIs. I'll tell you now, in order to get the data from this particular database into front end, you see that's where we have to use some set of rules and protocols that enable different software applications to communicate. This is very important. Communicate with each other. That is what I'm just talking. You see that if you wanted to get the data which is there inside a database into this application 1, application 2 and application N. That is where this API is working as a communication channel. Okay, acting like translator that allows different computer programs to exchange the data and functionality seamlessly. This is very, very important point. In case if you guys have not understood, I'll give you one real world example. Guys, listen carefully. If you guys are going for an interview, sometimes whatever the questions that interviewers are going to ask, and even one interviewer, if you ask the question, we are delivering the answer. Same way, some interviews there are couple of panel members will be there. Even panel 2, panel 3 and panel 4. If they are asking question, the same person is giving an answer to panel 1, panel 2, panel 3 and panel 4. Now you see that now if you are acting as a API, so that you are giving answers to client like panel 1, panel 2, panel 3 and panel 4. This is just an example for you to understand, but when you guys are working, and I'm sure we would be able to help you to implement real world, scenarios. Fine. So this is just a fundamental idea behind what is API. Then I would like to take you people to in depth. So about what is API and what are the other portions of API which is available. So let me talk about next. I hope you all understood what is the basics of API. Now if you all can see that the key components of API. So here the right from the beginning, client, to whom we will call it as a client. Guys, the user who is using with the help of any device, as we already discussed, either it may be a desktop or it may be a mobile or it may be a laptop, whatever it is, that particular mission can be called as a client. That is where the client is an application or a user interface that initiates a request. So for that, I'm planning to explain very small diagram. This is very powerful diagram yet. So this diagram, kindly remember, either if the user is using either desktop or if the user is using maybe a bigger screens, or if the users are using small mobile phones, or if the users are using tablets. So this I can consider a tablet, this I can call it as desktop, this I can call it as laptop, this will be called as mobile. Okay, DTLM, just an example. If users, no matter business users, the one who is going to access an application, we are going to call these guys are business users. These business users, if they would like to access, now you guys have to understand, these users are going to send a request to the server. Even server is also mission. The request would place from all the devices, the request will place. This is known as a request. That is where initiate the request. This is very, very important. Then the server also process. Now you can see that the second point is called a server. This is known as a server. The server is where API resides. All the API code which is going to store inside this particular server. Hope you guys are following me. I think the session is interesting. Please try to sit tight and try to sit in a place where there is no disturbance. I'm sure you are going to enjoy the session a lot. Okay, now if you all can see that the server where the APIs are storing, it processes the client request, whatever this is known as a request. The moment when the client is sending a request to the server is processes. This is what it is important. Server collects the request from a client. It is going to process the client request, interacts with the database. Again, this is going to interact with the database. This interacts with the database, interacts with the database or other systems and fetches the required data, and it will try to fetch the required data. Quite interesting, right? Now the moment this is called as response. See, that is where I have already tagged, this one is known as a response. Again, the same response what server will do, will give it back to the client. This can also be, this is called request, and once the server is processed that request, the response again server collects from the database, and the same response it is going to give it to the client. Finally, we are going to display all the data inside this particular devices. We are going to display. This is known as client server architecture. Like this, APIs can also give data back to the application 1. The same API can also give a data back to the application 2, and it can also give a data back to application N as well. I think majority of the people who have some confusions, I think this session is helping you a lot to clear all your doubts. If it is clearing your queries, please try to put a comment saying that good explanation, sir. Otherwise, if you have any questions, please put a comment so that we'll definitely connect with you and we'll resolve your problems. Thank you. Now you also can see that what are the key components. Right from beginning, this is all known as client and this is known as a server. This particular system we can call it as a server. Next, you see that endpoint. Guys, listen, from a client to server, if you want to request, then we need an endpoint. Endpoint is all about to whom you are going to interact in the back end, what server, the server hosted, what is the domain name of a server, what is an endpoint of that server. That's why the endpoint is a specific URL provided by the server where requests are sent. That is, for instance, http api.weather.com/v1/current, and you also can see that question mark city is equal to New York is an endpoint for fetching weather data of city New York. Similarly, if you guys are working on any real-time applications, you can talk to your server-side people and you can ask them to give a endpoint so that you can hit that endpoint and the endpoint connect to the database and it process that and it will get the data back to the client. And at last, you see that the fourth point here, which is also a very key component, that is called response. After processing the request, you see that the server send a response to the client, usually in structured format like JSON, JavaScript object notation, or XML. Guys, here XML is little bit older. Okay, you need not worry too much about this XML, but you have to worry about JSON as well, and it is containing the requested information. JSON is a lightweight object, JavaScript object notation. It is helping you guys to transmit the data between a client and server based upon the API request, and I'm sure you would be able to understand in detail when you guys are getting into the project. Okay, this is the basic information and basic key components with respect to the API. So next, what I'm going to explain how API works. Guys, you see that, as I already said, in case if you guys are collecting this particular information with respect to the client and server, now three missions, as you already know that if you consider one client and if you consider two clients and if you also consider n number of clients. Now this is all clients are sending a request. These clients are going to send a request to the servers and server processes the request and again it will try to send a request back to the database. This is just a useful diagram, I'm just explaining, because same once the request is processed and the response is given back to the client. Now this is three-tier architecture. Okay, this one you can consider as application 1, this one you can consider as application 2, this one you can consider as application 3. Now see that the request is going to be initiated by the client, then the server, this is known as server, this is where API data is, API request or API functions are going to reside. At the moment when the app send a request to the server, what server will do? The API processes the request and communicate with the database server. This is where generally the data is storing either in the format of data, in the format of table, or in the format of schema. Hope you understand. The same diagram you guys have to remember again and again and again. If I'm keep writing the same, don't hesitate to watch this particular video again and again. Why? Because guys, if this processing mission is not there, there is no point of creating a dynamic applications. Today you are sitting at your home. How YouTube is helping you to get the data into your mobile? YouTube also follows the API mechanism. Otherwise, if YouTube is not sending a data, as long as if you click on the thumbnail, you are a user, either you are using application 1 or if you are using application 2 or if you are using application 3, no matter whatever it is, the moment when you click on thumbnail, the request plays to the YouTube server through the endpoint of API. And YouTube server will communicate to the database of YouTube. That is where, based upon the request which is initiated by you, that data is coming back to the mobile. That is where you are enjoying. That's why API is a very critical point in the developer's life. So if you want to earn more, just learn more. Got my point? Don't just learn the fundamentals of what is API. I know there are many people who have been explained the APIs, but the way how we explain, I think this is going to help you and it will unlock your potential of learning, I guess. Okay, fine. And the response, the data is sent back to the app, this which is known as response. That is where the response, as I already discussed, either in the form of JSON, JSON / or we can also expect the response in the form of XML. So you can also expect, sir, why can't the data in the format of, maybe a text or HTML or maybe a Java? It is gonna be a biggest headache for a protocols, transmission protocols, in order to submit the huge data. If it is not in a lightweight format, it is trouble for a server to transmit the data between multiple applications. That's where when you are sending a request from client to server and server to the database and response from database to the server and server to the client, it should be a lightweight. Hope you understand, because I hope you understand the fundamentals of networking, right? The data is going to transmit between one particular system to another particular system in the form of pockets. The data is going to divide in the form of pockets. Hope you understand. See, for that one simple example I'll give you. When I make a call to my loved one, the moment when you enter the number, there is an interface and you will get a dial keyboard, and if you are sending any number like 8217268018, if you hit on the caller button, what happens? The data, the signals are going to connect to the nearest server. That is where API also comes into the picture. Quite interesting, right? And everywhere we are using mobile phones. Everywhere we are sending a messages. Everywhere, every day that we are calling the loved ones. But we don't know how system works. That is where I am just taking these real-time examples for you to explain. When you are sending a WhatsApp message, how the message is receiving and how the response is coming from the loved one. That is where API system comes into the picture. Yes, today you are ordering a product. By sitting at your comfortable zone, you are adding all the product into the cart and you are expecting the delivery to your village. How it is happening? With the help of an API. So hope you understand, API is gonna be a backbone. Yes, it is backbone already, and if you learn that, it is going to increase your salaries. That's why try to learn the fundamentals and advanced concept of API in detail. If you need more information, if you would like to work in live projects, or if you want any kind of an internship, talk to us. And our team is going to take you to the next level, and we'll try to allow you, in case if you are serious and if you want to build a bright career, talk to our team. Our team will definitely deploy you into a live project, even though if you are learning. But we will try to check it. There are a lot of terms and conditions. If you don't have much knowledge, we'll train you, then we'll try to put you into the projects. Now this is how API works, boss. Okay, if you guys are not able to understand the terminologies, reach out to us or talk to us. We'll try to share some sort of document for you, so that if you refer the document, I'm sure our document is created by the experts who are having more than 20-25 years of experience. And I'm sure, yes, of course, you all will get a data from anywhere, but the data what experts creates, it is very tough to get outside. That's where our team has equipped with a lot of experience, and they will try to make your life so easier and understand the quality of training what we are providing. Okay. Now I hope you understand how API works, right? Now types of APIs, that is very, very important, guys. Every day that I used to take some sort of interviews in order to fulfill my project needs, I used to conduct. Sir, you believe or not, we will at least ask minimum to minimum 5 to 10 questions in API when we are recruiting a full stack developers. And there are 80 to 90% of the people, they are very good in terms of basics, but when we are deep diving into the advanced concept of API, and 80 to 90% of the people are failed. Why they failed? Because they are blindly copying the code, and they are blindly pasting the code by copying it from generative artificial intelligence tools like Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot. Yes, of course we can use. Nobody is restricting you to not use those kind of softwares and AI tools, but you must have fundamental knowledge. If you don't have a basic syntaxes, if you're copying the complete code and if you inject into your application, yes, sometimes it works well, sometimes if it is not working, and you may have to alter the code. If you are planning to alter the code, make sure that you have to have a solid knowledge. Otherwise, 99.9%, which is not equal to 100%. Pata hai, sir. Keep it in your brain. Why we are asking you to learn all the concepts in a detailed way, right? So let us talk about what are the types of APIs which are there. That's where, if you all can see, API comes in a different types. RESTful APIs, I think representational state transfer protocols. Hope you guys have seen even SOAP APIs, REST APIs. This is all older ways of getting the data from a client and server, that communication between multiple servers. Now it is lightweight, and which is going to use HTTP methods, either HTTP hypertext transfer protocol with secure layer, and the second one, GraphQL. Boss, recent project we have used GraphQL. Even it is very efficient, and also it is flexible for data fetching, because GraphQL is also one of the API method which is helping a lot in order to get the data efficiently from the server when we are requesting from the client. Okay, and SOAP, secure, and it is XML based, but very few cases we have used SOAP based responses, but most of the places you guys are going to experience RESTful and GraphQL. And also now sometimes we can also use this webhooks when we are working with real-time updates. Yes, I also work for one project where there is a real-time data that we would like to get. I hope you all understood a ClickBudge or ClickInfo. See, if the batches are executed or conducted every minute and second, we may have to get the commentary, and we should also update the score. We should also update the extra runs or whatever it is. That is real-time, boss. There is a real-time engines which will keep communicating to the servers which are hosted in the stadium, so that there is some sort of real-time engines. Those guys are connect to the servers. They will try to give a data in the format of either JSON or whatever it is. That is where API systems, we have to create a webhooks. You see that it is helping us to fetch the data as and when if the data is changed. That is where we should also use little bit advanced concepts. Observables are there, observable patterns that we have to use. As long as data comes, latest data updates, observable patterns are going to fetch the details, and it will try to update into the client. So that's why for each and every purpose, RESTful is not going to support. For each and every reason, GraphQL is not going to support. For every situation, there is a different types of APIs that we have to use. And most of the people have failed to give a right solution for a right problem. And most of the people are aware RESTful APIs. And if you ask, they can even say that, yes sir, we are going to send a request, client HTTP or HTTPS, and server codes, the server response codes. I hope here very important points that I would like to explain here. Guys, it is much needed. So when you are sending a request from client to server by using REST API, now you see that you should also understand states. Now don't ever try to think what is the state, sir. I know Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, this is not a states when it comes to the REST APIs. State 0 is a state, which means the request is not even initialized. Okay, then 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now 1, the connection is not established. That is called, that can be represented by using 0. Now connection is about to establish. Connection is requested and server is connected and the data is prepared. The response is ready. Likewise, every state, and most of the people are not aware. Why? Because there are APIs, REST APIs, inbuilt APIs are there, like AxiOS and Fetch. All these guys are inbuilt, so that you need not worry about it. Why we were able to explain this? Because we started writing an application development in the year 2007, 8, 9, 10. What is today? 2024. It's been almost 18 plus years. But 2008 earlier there was no concept of API, boss. Seriously. 2007, 8, 9, we used to use the normal methods, but 2008 onwards, there's Ajax, asynchronous programming introduced into the market. That is where there was a concept of API comes into the picture. That's the reason today you are listening to a leader who has more than 18 years of experience. If you ask me, I'm not just born yesterday, or I have only 2 years or 3 years of experience. No, I have more than 1.5 decade, I can say. And the quality what we are providing with the help of what the experience speaks a lot, right? Now you see that the states also you should understand, and status codes. This is something which is much needed. Status code. What do you mean by status codes? Now see, when you are sending a request, sometimes 200 plus, which means that 200, 201, 2, 3, 4, up to 299, we can consider as 200 plus series, which is known as success. If the state is 4 and if the status code is 200, which means that the request which is initialized from client to server, it is properly processed and the response is also given to the client. That is how we should be considered. Guys, here I'll just take one simple example. Why we have to understand this concept? Because when I am sending, think about it, your client and server, both of them are in the same room. Assume that, okay, if your lover or if your wife or if your friend or if your brother or sister, if both of them are in same room, communicating is dead easy, right? Because both of them are in same room, you can shout or you can talk and they can hear. But what happens if those guys are outside of your room? Is it possible for you to analyze what is their situation? If they are not responding, is it possible for you to guess or predict why they are not responding? Right? That is where APIs will never ever stay in the same server. Client is different, server is different. Now, when the client is sending a request to a server which is not there in the same host, that is where you must understand this particular status code. Without these status codes, you cannot determine or you cannot understand what is the request status. Hope you guys have understood, right? Come back. Now 200 is a successful status, and 300 plus series of status codes are there to ensure what happens to our request. And there is another one called 400 plus series, and there is another one 500 plus series. So 300, it is something like forbidden issues, permission related, and 400, which is something related to the resources. When we are looking for a resource in API layer, if the resource is not available, that's where you would have already seen 404, page not found, resource not found, or method not found, or package not found, or module not found. Hope you guys have already seen this, right? This is because the resource to whom you are requesting, which is not available in the server. See how easy it is. Is it tough? No, right? Okay, next 500, which is known as internal server issues. We have seen already there are many places when we are sending a request to the servers. If the server is not responding on time, maybe if the application server is shut down or if the DB is not working as expected, there could be any reasons with respect to the server. If it is not working, you will definitely get an error. Now it is a time for you to think, if you guys are not handling those errors, what happens? The user will send a request. If the response is not coming, user has to wait. Do you think that users are going to wait? No, users will never ever wait, because as per the Google Insights and recent surveys, if the response is not coming to the client lesser than 3 seconds, 3 seconds, boss, retaining a customer is very tough. Even you yourself, if you go to the hotel, if there is a long queue, are you going to wait until you get a food? No one waits. But we will wait in a long queue in the liquor shops. That is different story, right? And I don't want to talk wrong examples, but I have seen there are many people who are waiting in the long queue in the liquor shops. That is also request. That the request is executing one by one. That is queue, and there is asynchronous and synchronous programming is there. That is quite interesting, and we'll try to release it later. Okay, but here understand the concept. The response plays a very important role, since the API resides in a different host, client resides in a other host, right? Hope I'm not boring this session. It's quite interesting. If you feel this session is interesting, please try to comment, yes sir, session is interesting, so that we will get boostings. Okay, because we are not asking anything from you people. Are we asking to pay any 1 rupee or 2 rupees for this content? It is absolutely free for all the subscribers, even all the people who are watching this, right? Fine. Now this is how status and state codes. When you guys are using REST APIs, this information is much needed. Again, there is a concept of methods. Methods, get method, there will be a post method, there is a put method, and even delete method. And fetch is also there, like put patch. The patch is also there. Like that, at least you must be in a position to understand where to use get method, where to use put method, where to use patch, where to use put, where to use delete. That we'll try to talk in detail about even each method, RESTful APIs, how it works, and GraphQL how it works, and even SOAP how it works, and webhooks how it works, and internal APIs how it works. We'll try to talk in detail later. Okay, I think this information is helpful for you to understand what are the types of APIs, and each type, REST API, GraphQL, SOAP, and webhooks. If you understand these 4, somehow is okay. When you are going to interviews, don't ever try to restrict yourself is only on REST APIs. No, there are GraphQL and even webhooks for real-time updates. This all is important for you to understand, right? Now you see, yes, there are millions of applications is already built by using this API concept. We cannot display all the millions of applications on this particular slide, but we are just allowing you people to understand what kind of domains that can be used for fetching the data seamlessly from a backend to the database, front end. Okay, and how are we going to send a request seamlessly from client to the backend, right? That is where e-commerce. I hope you guys have already seen there are a lot of e-commerce applications are there, right from Flipkart and Myntra, or maybe Amazon or Snapdeal, XYZ, Meesho, Asho, whatever it is. This is all comes under e-commerce. Yes, they are using APIs, and social media apps like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, right, Twitter. All these social media also they are using APIs. Even Google Maps. Every day, there are millions of requests are going to the server from the client. Like if your phone, if you turn on GPS, and if you click on Google Maps, and if you give a source and destination, automatically with the help of signals, APIs are going to fetch the details between these 2 systems, right? And weather apps, and how we are also getting, and sometimes we are prepared enough in case if you would like to go to the office with umbrella, without umbrella, or this kind of decision that you would like to take, the weather report, and not see, since you are there in the safest place, I think weather apps are not going to be useful. But if the people who are staying near to the sea or near to any other dangerous places, I'm sure this data is going to help them a lot in order to protect their lives, right? This is all giving the data from a API. So that's where APIs are a backbones. You also can see that by using an API, we can build a web applications. We can also use an API for gaming applications. We can also use APIs for telecasting, like Netflix. Netflix servers are not sitting in your home. Netflix servers are somewhere else. Even today, AHA. So even we are using some sort of Amazon Prime, and we are also using a different kind of OTT platforms. And you need not to go to the theater. In case if you have a very good setup in your home, you can sit in front of your TV, smart TVs, and you can enjoy. How? With the help of an API. So that's where you can also wearable devices. You see that this is my personal watch, and even it is tracking my activity. And even if you wear this one, it will track your sleeping activities as well. So this kind of devices also it will communicate with the help of API, and sensors, and even mobile devices, enterprise applications, even cars. Nowadays, everywhere the cars are also, people are using some sort of smart systems. Am I making sense? And driverless cars are there. How these guys are helping? The information is submitting to the systems with the help of API mode. That's where APIs are backbone for an application development, right? And now see API security, guys, that is very, very, very important. If you guys are not thinking about the security of an API, anybody can steal your information, because See, the data always, generally I'll tell you, the data always stores in a database. So very simple diagram, again I'm just writing the same for you to understand. Client, there will be multiple clients, and the database. Sometimes there will be multiple database as well. I'm talking about only just a small server. Now you see, when you are sending a request to the server, again server is sending a request to the database, and database is giving a response back to the client. Either client 2 is application 2 or client 3. This is just a 3-tier architecture. This is all you can consider as a client. Guys, now this is a very sensitive part. What is the sensitive part of an application? Database is a sensitive part. What is the sensitive part of a human? Brain is a sensitive part. That's why we should not even create any activity, or you should not even perform any actions which is damaging your brain. That's why if the brain is damages, you might not respond to the people, or you might not work effectively. Similarly, if the database is damages, I'm sure you cannot build a real-time and dynamic application. That's where this is a sensitive part. Now you see that the API layer which is inside, if it is connecting from here, this request is raising. If you are not protecting the API, then API directly, someone can easily enter into the database, they can change. One simple example I'll tell you. Assume that, okay, in your account, there is maybe 10,000 rupees is there, or maybe 1 lakh, or 1 crore, or 10 lakhs, or maybe 1 crore. Now assume that if you are not protecting your account, if some APIs are started hitting and then they changed it to 10,000, would you be happy? You are going to keep hitting the bank people. Say yes or no? And it is just only zeros they deleted. Boss, it is going to be a biggest problem for the applications in case if developers are not protecting an API. This is just one simple example, is quite good enough how important to think about the security of an API, right? So that is where security is very important. User authentication. Today, you guys are giving a thumb. So if you would like to open your mobile phones, now we are giving a fingerprint access, right? That is where authentication. And your fingerprint must be recorded earlier, so that if you put your fingerprint, it will open. I try to open someone else's computer or maybe a device by putting your fingerprint, it will not work, right? That is one way of protecting our APIs. There is another one, asset management, code injections, security misconfigurations. There are a lot of other concepts are there. Now if you all can see, API security includes authentication, API keys, OAuth. I think JWT is also one of the best way to authenticate and authorize, and we'll try to deep dive into all the concepts in the subsequent lessons, and because overnight nothing is possible. Hope you agree with that particular point. And I tried my level best, and my team also tried our level best in order to provide a quality of information. I think this is helping you a lot to understand the fundamentals and bit of detailed information with respect to an API, right? So that is all about APIs. I think you guys have learned something with respect to an API, what is request, what is response, how to protect, what are the key components. If you like this video, kindly share this video to all your friends who would like to become a good developer and who would like to earn more and more salaries, and this video would definitely help. It is a free video, and you need not to hesitate to share as much as possible. And if you like the content, and please try to share this content or like our video, and for more and more updates, please try to subscribe our channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. Have a great day.